What is going on, guys? It's the Mag Dragon. Welcome back to another preview video for the Six Nations 2022. These are, of course, where we chuck on a game of Rugby 22 in the background of the teams that are going to be playing on the weekend. And then over the top, we talk about the official teams that have been announced that are going to be playing this weekend. We go through all the players, have a look who we think is going to do well, who we think might do badly. And then finally, we give a score prediction on how we think the real world game is going to go. This one is going to be between England and Wales. It's a game everyone looks forward to every year in the Six Nations. There's going to be an awful lot to talk about in this game. So let's get this game kicked off and underway. Alrighty, P. Barnes is going to get us kicked off. I don't know who P. Barnes is. Of course, England not licensed in Rugby 22, which is a real big shame for these videos. Unfortunately, we don't get to play as the official England team at any point in this one. So, England versus Wales. This for me is probably one of the biggest games that's on the rugby calendar every year. As a Wales supporter myself, I know I try and remain as objective as possible when it comes to these videos. But as a Wales supporter, you know, these games that come up every year are some of the biggest games I love to be involved in. I did do the big breakdown of the game that happened last year, with Wales surprising quite a few people managing to win that game. And that one brought a lot of people to the channel, a lot of new subscribers, a lot of you guys watching right now have told me before in the comment section that's what brought you to the channel. And I really enjoyed doing that video. Doubt I'm going to be able to do one this year, unfortunately. But England versus Wales is such a big fixture every year. Great rivalry, and it can really go either way. It's such a fantastic game to watch. Who should we talk about first? Let's talk about Wales, because I can rant about Wales a little bit when we get into these. So, Wales last week playing Scotland at home and coming away with a win, which was surprising to me, in all honesty. I think Wales will be extremely happy with the outcome of that game, getting that result. Wales, of course, still missing a lot of their starting players through injury. There was a couple of issues going on in the game. They had a couple of penalties not going their way. They had that pretty poor game against Ireland. And the bounce back turnaround to be able to win against a Scotland team that beat the England team they're coming up against this week, you know, should give them a great deal of confidence coming into this game. A lot of players really stepping up. A lot of players managing to fix a lot of the issues they had. Some changes around in the team. I think they'll be very happy with that game. Again, the penalty count for them was a little bit high. It certainly kept Scotland in that game for a long, long time. But luckily, a couple of players like Dan Bigger, who just refused to get off the field, managing to keep them in that game. Going into this week then, so let's check out the team that's been announced to go on in this Wales-England game. There's not going to be a great deal of changes here from what we saw last week, but there's certainly a couple of key ones that I want to go over. So starting off in this front row, Wyn Jones, Ryan Elias and Tom Francis. Now this front row held up pretty well last week. Wyn Jones is quite a good player all round, to be honest. Ryan Elias is throwing improved. It couldn't get worse, so I guess technically it improved. You know, the line-out system certainly got a little bit better than we saw against that Ireland game, but the Ireland team is so good in terms of that line-out. It's so hard for them to get on top of it. And then Tom Francis, of course, the try scorer last week for Wales. So nice to see him getting over for a try. Really doesn't get over enough, but that Wales maul certainly working well for them. In the lock department then, Will Rowlands and Adam Beard. Will Rowlands got a lot of praise last week, and I think maybe I missed it a little bit. I saw Will Rowlands and Adam Beard both giving away penalties in terms of the breakdown, both overstretching, both going off feet, not rolling away. I think there just needs to be a little bit of a setback in this team in terms of how many players in this Wales team desperately attempt the jackal. We're seeing in the top teams now, you know, New Zealand, France, Ireland, they're not necessarily going for a jackal on every single breakdown. They're happy to have their main jackalers work on it and go in pods of two, one-man tackle, one-man jackal. And I think it works really well. One thing that is beginning to annoy me about this Wales front eight, maybe it's because they're missing some of the key players, but it feels like at almost every breakdown someone's attempting the jackal, which is, you know, perfectly fine if you get the turnover, if you get the penalty, great success. However, I feel like every single one isn't needed. There's nothing wrong with just taking a tackle, take them to ground, get some of their bigger clear-out players involved in one ruck, and then attempt the jackal on the next one. That's what I want to see from some of the Wales locks there. Just stop giving away quite as many penalties and keeping your opposition in the game. And then finally in that back row, Ross Moriarty going in at the 6. Tame Basham comes back in on that 7 shirt, and then Talupe Falatau back in the 8 shirt. So a bit of swapping around here in this back row. Now, I don't think the back row worked terribly against Scotland. I thought it worked pretty well. Nice to see Jack Morgan doing pretty well on his debut. A couple of hiccups. You know, there was a penalty against him for offside at one point. Tame Basham's just playing good rugby at the minute, and Talupe Falatau, a lot of people will be very happy to see Talupe Falatau in. I will say, as I have said in a couple of videos people normally get really angry about, I've never been 100% around the hype of Taulupe Faletau. He seems to score really well in terms of the fantasy, the fans seem to love him, the commentators seem to love him. I never really quite see the thing that a lot of other people talk about. He just plays very different from any other weight 8 in Wales, and sometimes it works well in games. But then as we saw on the Lions tour, I really just didn't see Taulupe Faletau really exploding in that Lions tour. So occasionally, I don't think it works, but hopefully he can have a good game against England. In terms of the backs then, Thomas Williams and Dan Bigg are going to be retaining their 9-10 positions. Dan Bigg, like I said last week, really impressed me. A lot of fly halves really began to fall off last week in towards that second half, and I thought Dan Bigg was one of the few that really stuck it out for the full 80, even with an injury. He picked up that injury in the first 20 minutes and really continued, kept kicking all the kicks we needed him to, kept ticking over their points, kept Wales in the game. Making big calls. Now, whether you agree or disagree with the drop goal that he did last week, it basically won Wales the game. I didn't think it was the right call at the time, as I don't think anyone did, with the penalty advantage. I don't really see the purpose in that. They had the penalty advantage. They could have just taken the 3. It was smack bang in front of the post anyway. Didn't really need the drop goal, but, you know, inevitably when you look back at the score, Wales win by 3, and the 3 points came from that drop goal. So, you know, if you're going to make the call, you've got to have the result, and he certainly did. So I'm not too annoyed about that, but, you know, I think Dan Bigg's decision-making is normally pretty good. Again, the issue for him now is captain, got to lead by example, got to make those tough calls. In the centre partnership, Nick Tompkins and Owen Watkin going to be retaining their centre partnership, and this is absolutely correct in my mind. Owen Watkin last week was the standout shining star for me in this Wales team. I've said it for not just the previous weeks in the Six Nations, I said it through the autumn tour. I think I even said it in the summer tour. Why is Owen Watkin not in this 13 shirt? Why do we keep needing to put Jonathan Davies in the 13? Why are we putting Nick Tompkins in the 13? Why are we putting Halaholo in the 13? Owen Watkin is, for me, the best outside centre in Wales at the minute. His defensive work is awesome. Some of the tackles he made last week against Scotland, last man, 2-on-1, tackled 2 players at one point at the same time. Not sure if it's legal, but he managed to do it. The only blemish on his marker was a kick that went straight into touch. He's not much of a kicker. Don't know why he attempted the kick. You know, we take that away from him. But thought he was absolutely superb. I think he deserves to be keeping Jonathan Davies on that bench. I just don't see Jonathan Davies making an impact on the games anymore. He came on in that second half, and him and Owen Watkin together managing to get that turnover in that 80th minute, awesome. And I've seen everything attributed to Jonathan Davies doing that single-handedly, even though there was quite clearly 2 people doing that. I think Owen Watkin deserves that 13 shirt, and we need him in. As a Wales supporter, you want to be seeing the younger lads, the lesser capped players, you know, who are going to be at the next World Cup, want someone to be in that starting 13 shirt. Nick Tompkins is also capable in 13. Personally, I'd maybe like to see Johnny Williams get back into this team. I did see him play in club level the other week, and I thought he did okay. But Owen Watkin, very, very happy to see him in there. Finally, in this back row, a bit of a shift around here, which I've seen different reviews on, people from different opinions on this. We've got Josh Adams coming back in, taking over as left wing. No more Josh Adams at 13. There's another centre we play at 13 for some reason. Alex Cuthbert is going to be retaining that right wing shirt, and then Liam Williams in that fullback shirt. Now, big call here, of course, not having Zammit. I've seen some very mixed responses about this. I have thought for the past couple of weeks that Rhys Zammit looks like he's picked up a bit of an injury. I have seen in a couple of games he seems to be not quite limping but stumbling a little bit. He's certainly not at top speed that we've seen him in the past. We've certainly seen players beginning to outrun him. People have been questioning his defence. I think his defence has been good, to be honest. I think the only blemish I'd have on his record is the Darcy Graham try. It was just bad positioning. But I think for the 2 games, I think defensively he's been really good. I'm quite surprised that people were annoyed about his defence. But I think Alex Cuthbert's a big call. Because on the other hand, I actually think Alex Cuthbert, again, big calls here. I wasn't sure if Alex Cuthbert had an overly good game last week. Now, he had a very good attacking game. However, again, the things that people talk about, he's on the ball, he's getting, those meters, he's getting over the line, he chased the kick that came off the post, awesome. He's doing all that work, that's good work, that's what you want to be seeing from a winger. However, he did get over the try line twice and didn't score a try. He's not finishing them off. Now, that could be Scottish defence was very good. Fair enough. It could be he didn't have enough room to do it. But fine. But he did get over the try line twice, didn't score a single try. And then he also had a couple of times where I saw him still again peeling off his wing on the defensive side and players getting round him. We did see Duan van der Merwe make a bit of room round him on the wing as well. You know, I'm still not sold on the Cuthbert move. Personally, I would maybe look in for a slightly different 14. Nothing wrong with having Alex Cuthbert on the wing. I would maybe like to see, if you're really desperate to have this winger in the centre idea, I think Cuthbert might not be a bad move. He's a big boy. You could chuck him at centre and use him a bit like a Jamie Roberts. But it doesn't seem to be an area they're exploring at all. We'll have to see how he gets on that wing. In terms of a 1 to 15... it's a good Wales team. I think maybe technically better than last week's with a couple of the switches around. But we'll have to see how they get on against a very formed England team. So we are into the second half now. I've been talking way too long about this. We'll quickly run through the replacements for Wales. Dewi Lake going to be in that 16 shirt. Gareth Thomas and Leon Brown, replacement front rows. Again, Dewi Lake there's the bit of the standout for me. I think he's doing very well in that replacement hooker position. Other replacement forward, Seb Davis and Jack Morgan, who will come on. I imagine he might come on at 7. Maybe Tame Bash will move to 6 when he comes on. Maybe they'll move Moriarty to 8. A lot of swapping around in that back row. Could shift around a little bit. Kieran Hardy going on that scrum half. Again, saw him play on the weekend. It was an alright. It was an alright game. There was a couple of points. He had a couple of really good manoeuvres and a couple of really bad ones. So be interested to see how he gets on. Gareth Anscombe coming back into the team. So a lot of these names slowly getting back from injuries. Nice to see him back in there. And then finally Jonathan Davis. Again, the back three coverage, not great in this team. Again, it's just relying on that centre swap out for Jonathan Davis. Personally here, I would maybe want someone that's going to have a slightly better coverage. I maybe would have had a winger here. Maybe this is where Zammit could have gone, and that way if he came on the wing, you can move Josh Adams or someone else back to fullback. Not sure, but we'll see how they get on. After rambling for way too long, we of course need to talk about England. Now England last week lost to Italy. In the under-20s, in the normal men's 15, they dominated all around the board. It was looking really good from England, to be fair. I think the first half was way better than the second half. I certainly began to see Marcus Smith get a little bit strained in that second half, got a bit annoyed, got a bit in his own head, and we certainly saw a couple of things not working well for them. But again, you know, it's Italy. They are probably always going to get the result against Italy when they're in the form they're currently in. Got their 4 tries, got their bonus point, did the job, get out. I think very, very good from England. So taking a look at the team that's been named for this week then. Starting off in this front row, Ellis Genge, Luke Cowan-Dickie comes back in that hooker position. And then Kyle Sinclair in that tighter position. I see Luke Cowan-Dickie back in. He's seen now what Jamie George is offering. Time for you to step up. I think this is a clever move from Eddie Jones. Get that competitiveness within the team. Get people fighting for positions. I think that's a really good move. I'm sure Luke Cowan-Dickie will be looking to have a very good game this week. In terms of the lock departments, Charlie Ewell's retaining that 4 shirt and Maro Itoje going on in the 5 shirt this week. Isikwe is going to move to the bench. I don't think this is a terrible move. I haven't been enormously impressed by Isikwe since he's come on to the England side of things. A couple of penalties given away in every game. A couple of the lineouts not necessarily working well for him. Maro Itoje much more suited to me in terms of that lock position, but I thought he had a very good game last week at 6, so nothing wrong there. I think that's a good move. Because Maro Itoje has moved, of course, in this back row, someone else had to fill in at 6, and it's going to be Courtney Laws. Nice to see him back in. A very good player. Leaned out a lot in the last year, increased his speed, improved his strength a bit. Nice to see him in. He is going to actually be taking over the captaincy, is what I've got written down here. So that's nice to see. So Tom Curry having a week off, I guess, in terms of the captaincy, will retain that 7 shirt. And then Alex Dornbrandt in the 8 shirt now. You know, any Sam Simmons fans who want Sam Simmons in this 8 shirt, Alex Dornbrandt showing off last week, had a really, really good game. Think he absolutely deserves to have this 8 shirt again. Put him now against probably a slightly higher rated team than Italy. See if he can do the same thing, and if not, you've got Sam Simmons to come on in that second half. Injection of speed and power in that second half. I don't think that's a bad move. In terms of the halfback partnership, Harry Randall going to be retaining that 9 shirt starting this week. Would be nice for him to see him, you know, get on, play against Wales in Twickenham, and then Marcus Smith in that 10 shirt. Now again, like I've already said, Marcus Smith last week, I did think I saw, you know, a bit of a downside to Marcus Smith in the fact that when he's playing well, he plays exceptional. You know, and you have to look past the BBC and ITV coverage of Marcus Smith where every breath needs to be. Let's talk about how amazing Marcus Smith needs to be. But I really thought in that second half against Italy, it showed the sign for an opponent team to look at him. If you can apply big pressure, get some tackles, get him to mess up a little bit on some of his kicks, some of his passing, really apply it to him, he will begin to feel that pressure a little bit, which is astonishing considering, what the lad's gone through in the last 18 months, going from making debut to the Lions to now, being first choice in that England fly half shirt. He deals with pressure well. But it's more an in-game pressure, and I think for a lot of teams now, I would be looking to target him really hardcore in every game. Line him up, do some up and unders where he is absolutely the target. Keep the ball away from Freddie Stewart in the air. Make it specifically at Marcus Smith with someone chasing hard in order just to clatter him as soon as he gets it. Really put him under pressure, and you might be able to see that England attack break down a little bit just from not having some of the fantastic distribution we do get to see from Marcus Smith. In the centre partnership, Manu Tuilagi coming back in that 12 shirt, and Henry Slade slides back to that outside centre, where I prefer him massively, to be honest. I think he works way better in 13 than 12. I'm really not a fan of Henry Slade in the inside centre. Manu Tuilagi brings a totally different depth to this England squad now. Experience, power and speed. You've always got to have a man covering, also makes him a fantastic dummy runner because you've always got to have someone watching him. I think this is a really nice move from England to move back in for this game. And then in that back three, Jack Noel managing to come back from his HIA situation he had last week, which is nice to see him back in. Max Malin's on that 14 shirt, who I'd like to see have a bit more ball in hand. He really didn't get a lot against that Italy team, which was a real shame. And then Freddie Stewart in that 15 shirt. I believe currently he's top of the board for metres made or something. He's a bit cheating maybe when you're at the full back and you get to run 30 metres before you do an up and under, but still having a good game. Really nice to see him still in this team in that fullback shirt. In terms of the replacements then, Jamie George going to come on in that second half. Again, the competition for that hooker position. So nice to see England having pretty much two world-class hookers now. Are going to be just duking it out for that position. Nice to see. Joe Marler and Will Stewart will come on. Again, this is a strong front row. Will that Wales scrum begin to crumble? Maybe. We'll have to see how they get on. But I think this is not a terrible move to have some big experienced players coming on in that second half, just to try and sort the game out towards the end. Ezekwe in the 19 shirt, like I've already mentioned, and Sam Simmons in that 20 shirt will of course go in that second half. Hopefully it'll be an explosive entry. I don't want to see people coming on for this England team and just coming on for the sake of coming on. I like to see them come on and make a real impact in the game. I'm sure that's what Eddie Jones will be looking forward to. Bit of speed, bit of pace, trying to get through the gaps a little bit more. And then the replacement backs, Ben Youngs in that 21 shirt, George Ford, who just can't manage to get in the starting team in the 22, and then Elliot Daly in that 23, came on quite early last week. But I didn't think he had a terrible game on the left wing, to be fair. I thought he actually had a pretty decent game. So overall, a good England team is what I take away from this. A young but yet experienced and very technical based side. In terms of a score prediction, I guess we really should say it's coming towards the end of the game now. Where do we think this game is going to go? I think England and Twickenham is always a hard game. It's always going to be a tough one. And I think with the number of injuries that Wales have and some of the other games I've seen with the amount of penalties given away from Wales, when I think a team like England will absolutely capitalise on them. Marcus Smith isn't so much about the rivalry as we've seen from other England players in the past. Chris Robshaw and Farrell. I don't think there's any issues with him in taking 3 from anywhere. He won't care. No need to just drive that over for a try. If you come away with a win, that's all that matters. And I think he's quite clinical in that mentality. So I'm going to lean towards England for this one. It's just going to come down to team discipline, I think, of how many penalties Wales want to give away in this one. I'm going to say England to win by... I'm going to say 10. I'm going to say England to win by 10 for this one. Maybe that's a bit harsh. Not sure how that one's going to go. But, guys, I am, of course, but one man on the internet talking nonsense about rugby. So like I say every week, make sure you guys do drop down in the comment section who you think is going to win, which players you think are going to do really well, which games you're looking forward to see, and your score predictions. I love reading through the comments, seeing what everyone has to say. It's a lot of fun. We are, of course, going to be doing one of these videos for every game over the Six Nations, so make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. We've already got the video up for the Scotland-France game, and the Ireland game will be coming out very, very soon. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.